Welcome back to another segment from our podcast series with Splitting Image Taxidermy, right here on Salt Lake Outdoors, where we delve into the real stories behind the hunt and the hard truths about conservation. I'm your host, Shaun Kogut. Today, I'm joined by Doug Cockcroft, the owner of Splitting Image Taxidermy. Together, we're tackling some tough topics head-on, from the essential role of hunting and conservation to the ongoing debates that challenge the acceptance of hunting as a necessary science-backed practice. We'll discuss the profound impact hunting has on conservation efforts in local communities, shining a light on how hunters are pivotal to sustaining biodiversity. Buckle up as we break down myths, confront controversies, and share insights that many fail to recognize. Whether you're a hunter, conservationist, or someone curious about the intersection of tradition and science, this conversation is for you. We open with a softball. Now let's get into the meat and potatoes of it, and that's hunting and conservation and how those two things are either opposing one another or they can work together. And I know you are super passionate about this topic, so let's just go ahead and get right into it. And let me get your take on it, and then I'll give you mine, and we'll let Mike jump in, and we'll have us a good roundabout.
I'm in. You've got an iPad that you've got notes on and a lot of your business, a lot of your work on it. If that iPad didn't have value, would you look after it?
Of course not.
That's what hunters do. We give the incredible wildlife of the world, not just Africa. We give these animals a very specific value. And when an animal has value, people will look after them. It's that simple. So I explained, I have 3 daughters. I don't push hunting on my daughters. They are open to making the choice. So there's 3 kinds of individuals out there. There's the non-hunter, the hunter, and the anti-hunter. I don't mind non-hunters, as long as the choice to become a non-hunter was made on clear education and facts. They just don't like to hunt. They're not opposed to it. They understand the necessity of it. But they're not willing to partake. When it comes to anti, I quite often feel that it's an emotional perspective. It's a rant that isn't backed up by facts. And the facts are simple. If we don't have a value on an animal, landowners, counties, provinces, countries, they won't look after that animal. Why would they invest in something that has no value? It's just the way it is. So my perspective has always been, taxidermy is the ability to remind the hunter of an incredible experience. It shows others the value because you're sharing that experience. It's the prop for an awesome story. And as human beings, whether you're around a campfire, a boardroom table, a coffee table, we share stories. So I'm pretty headstrong on where we stand. I believe that hunting is a tool that, if used responsibly, is one of the most effective conservation tools we have in our hands today. There are always going to be irresponsibles, don't get me wrong, but we're focused on the responsible use of wildlife as an asset.
And do you think especially the comments that we get from the anti-side, right, from the far left, is that based on a lack of education, or is that somehow intertwined in some the way they were brought up and they had these weird beliefs? For me, I think it could be both. But yeah, what's your take? What causes them to act this way and be this way, even though we've got all this data that shows, this is a good thing and this is how we maintain and manage, but they still refuse to believe?
That's saying you're not going to please everybody. I think it's the same in so many spheres of life. We're not going to please everyone. It's just the way it is. There is free choice out there. And the choice to be for or against hunting, it's up to the individual. Unfortunately, I think that my personal belief with social media, there's a lot of negativity that's spread, and there's a lot of sheep out there. And these guys they jump on the bandwagon and they just want to be heard. It doesn't care what they scream. They don't care. They just want to be heard.
Keyboard warriors. That's what we like to call them.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to this point.
But you know what? They are there when it comes to this point. They may be the most educated individual and have degrees and all the accolades under the sun. It doesn't mean they're educated as to how to look after the animals, because they haven't got dirt under their nails. They haven't seen animals suffering. They haven't seen the changes that hunting can bring around. In that sense, they're uneducated.
Yeah, that's the old analogy. That's the dumbest smart person I've ever met.
Yeah,
in my
there
life.
it is. There it is, 100%.
So let me, and I'm going to segue off this. So this is something that I'm starting to see a lot more of, and it drives me crazy. So as hunters, I feel like we must be unified together, right?
Yes.
We need to have a common goal and a common plan, and we need to look out for one another and encourage one another. So what I've especially these past several years, 5-6 years, I've really started to see a lot of bashing and shaming within the hunting community from other hunters. So you've got your bow hunters that hate rifle hunters, and you've got your crossbow hunters that hate bow hunters, and then your rifle hunters that hate crossbow hunters because they get to go out, and just on and on and on and on and on. And for me, that's counterproductive to what we need as a group of people, not in just South Africa or the U.S., but worldwide. What's your thought about that?
Absolute agreement. And we've seen it in South Africa with various hunting organizations that have splintered, and because one portion of the organization has that set of thoughts and other portion has the other set of thoughts, and the only way they can sort it out is splinter. I'm going to go and have my own organization, and you can have your organization. But I agree with you entirely that people are losing track and losing sight of what the big picture is. Why do we hunt? What's the why? There's a Simon Sinek fellow who, it's a great piece on what, how, why. What's our why? Why do we hunt? And I think if we go back to basics, and through efforts like you've put forward with your company and many other great companies that are out there, it's about educating and creating clear information so that we're in a position that we're not looked down upon, but we can sit across the table and we can communicate with one another and say, we stand for hunting. Yeah.
That question came from what we're seeing in the States. We're not here enough, and I'm not engulfed enough in your community here in South Africa to understand that, but that's what we're seeing stateside. Hannes had said yes, that there, maybe that would be a good segue into the question, because he thinks that that's an issue here as well. And that's the thing I tell people: if we can't come together as hunters, how can we come together to fight the anti-hunters?
I agree with
and all this legislation that wants to oppose and ban hunting? We can't do it. So if we don't have a unified front, it's going to be easy to win. So we need all the help we can get, obviously, in this fight, because this is going to be a bad one. Said and done.
We were raised hunting, and that's the base of it. That's it. It's a way of life. And my kids have hunted, and they've skinned their own animals, and they've processed the meat, and they've eaten the animal that they've hunted. They respect the animal. Those fundamentals we need to carry on through the youngsters, through the next generation. We need to become advocates for responsible utilization of the wildlife.
We've been filming for several weeks already, and we had, we started at Hunters Hill, like I mentioned, and I had the opportunity to film for actually one of our film crew that came along with us. I kind of flipped the roles with her. She didn't know she was going to be able to hunt, so it was her birthday while she was here. So the guys and I all kind of pitched in, and she, for whatever reason, she really fell in love with the giraffe instantly. So we put her on a giraffe hunt as a surprise.
Wow.
And I got to switch roles, and I was behind the camera, and I got to film it. And I think seeing a woman behind camera that's just harvested something that she's only ever dreamt about. Now, mind you, this was her first ever trip to Africa.
Right.
And I sat back and I was quiet and I just kind of watched, but it was really moving in how emotional not only she got, but her PH. It really took the time to, to thank the animal, and they prayed over the animal, and it was just super emotional. And you can see how much she appreciated that animal and that opportunity. Yeah. And I don't think people don't understand that as hunters, we're just not these bloodthirsty guys that are going out there and just shooting stuff and letting it lay down.
Correct.
We appreciate these animals, what they've given for us. And it was just really eye-opening to me. I talk it, but if you need to walk the walk if you're going to talk the talk kind of
Every
thing.
day.
And I was reminded of that and how important that was, and to give respect to the animal after the hunt. Like I said, the hunt is fleeting, but those memories that you made are going to last forever. And it was really, just like I said, sidetracked, but it was pretty cool to watch. So
quick a note on that. That also trickles down to further to just the memory. That feeds many people.
Well, we're actually going to get into that next too.
So it's a great memory, yeah.
Yeah,
but these people don't quite understand that trickle-down effect. So.
No, I speak of a domino effect, and the domino effect is massive in Africa. I'll explain to you about the taxation system. It's not a tax system, but it's almost a tax to a lot of underprivileged local African people, that the young man will receive his salary at the end of the month or at the end of the hunt. He gives that entire salary back to his family. His father or mother would then give him a piece back and say, you can have that. And unfortunately, it's a generational thing. So what hunting has done, it's given not just the opportunity to the skinner, tracker, the chef in the kitchen, or the guide, it's keeping their families alive.
Right.
But the public eye doesn't see that. The anti-movement doesn't see that. All they see is the giraffe that's been shot. And because of so many ill truths that are spoken about giraffes becoming extinct, which is nonsense, there are thousands of them and they breed prolifically. And if you don't manage the population, you're actually damaging the property beyond repair.
Well, and that is a perfect point. And I think everybody got to see that now. We spent the last few days at Matola with Tion and his family, and they have a giraffe problem.
There we go.
And last year I harvested a big bull giraffe, 27, 28 years old, something like that. And because of this thought that, the giraffes are going extinct and they're this and they're that. And so he can't get anybody to hunt these giraffes. Fortunately, I came over last year and hunted one, and Mike did one this year. But there's this stigmatism now surrounding that specific animal, yeah. And oh no, it's taboo. And I've talked to people about, I'd kind of like to, but I don't want to deal with all the shit that I'm going to catch after the fact, right? But so now he's left with a decision. You can look and see the massive overbrowsing that the giraffes are causing, and they breed prolifically, like you say. So he's left with a decision now. Does he try to move them to a different farm, which is very much cost prohibitive, or does he just go ahead and start culling and call the arbiter in and let them deal with it and try to, salvage a little bit, from a cost perspective for the meat. So, those people that argue, you're hunting for sport. Now, is it better for us to go and hunt for sport and then make sure that meat goes places and the tip money goes places? Or you get into the situation now where the farmer has to take matters into his own hands because they can't sustain the population, and it's hurting all the other species there that rely on that same forage. And now he's going to shoot them. And yes, some of it will get used, but not all of it. And that's not nearly the money's going back into that local economy that would otherwise. And I don't think people understand that if not for hunting, these farmers they're gonna tear down their fences and farm cattle and sheep, which is more profitable.
In a heartbeat.
Yeah.
It goes back to the previous point. If the animal does not have value, why would the landowner look after them? And we're seeing it with the giraffe now, because the perception is that's been created by the anti-movement, and it's been done with a fantastic budget, because the old ladies that shake the tins outside the mall, and everyone puts their spare change in there because it's for some save a pet. That's going to fight the good movements of conservation. And people don't realize the damage that they're doing. Giraffes no longer have the value that they used to. So what are the farmers going to do? They're going to cull them. It's going to happen. And we've seen it in the studio. We've seen a downturn in the number of giraffes specifically that are being hunted. There's been a definite downturn. They are still being hunted, but you're going to find those folks are not as publicly available. And therefore, it's not that they're hiding, they don't want the public acknowledgement for what they do. They hunt for the hunt itself.
We did a segment last year. The giraffe that I hunted last year had been pre-planned for nearly a year, and it was about a specific giraffe. And for me, I'd always wanted to hunt a giraffe, but it kind of needed to mean something. There needed to be a story behind it. And this giraffe was the original giraffe that was brought into Matola.
That's cool.
Yeah, and so he's 28, 29 years old. He was the original bull. He's been there long enough now. There's so many generations. They're starting to inbreed again, and we need to make room for some of the younger bulls to come in.
That's it.
And we filmed the whole thing, and when we cut the video and released it, it was from a conservation perspective, with a conservation mind, not just a hunt. We actually focused very little on the hunt and more on the story of why and how we got here. And then we interviewed the farm owner, and we interviewed everybody associated with it, the arbiter, and tried to give people an understanding that this is why we're doing it. So the hunt is a minute of a nearly hour-long episode. And the rest of it focuses on the conservation of the species and the animal. And that was, I knew we were going to catch crap for it, but it was very little compared to what I thought we were going to get. I think we only had a couple of negative comments. In fact, the vast majority of the thousands of comments we got were, hey, that's perfect. You explained it just right. More people need to know this. So we were fortunate in that we didn't catch a bunch of slack. I was ready for it though, so I don't shy away from that at all, from controversy. I don't delete comments. I'll answer if somebody will comment, regardless if it's just a keyboard warrior or not. I'm going to respond in one way or the other. I'm not going to show my ass. I'm not going to be mean about it. But I'm going to try to educate them, and normally I do that by asking them a question, and then trying to get them involved in the conversation. Have I had success turning anybody from an anti to a hunter? Probably not, but I feel better for trying to keep doing it.
And if more of us make the effort, it becomes a collective, and that goes back to what you were saying. We need to stand together as enthusiasts of wildlife, and just good old boys and girls that enjoy being outdoors with animals. We've got to stand together.
Yeah.
It's critical.